This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Monday, August 11th, 2025. Though apparently it's 1996 all over again. We're talking today about Happy Gilmore 2, not released
the
in theaters,
latest,
a Netflix
the latest Adam
exclusive.
Sandler flick.
Yeah. Quite possibly the only Netflix Adam Sandler flick I've seen. I think I might have seen one other one we reviewed like years and years ago, but I can't remember it. And we also got some news on the censorship front from Steam, MasterCard, Stripe, MasterCard, and Visa censoring Steam and IO. And whatever else comes up today. There are rumblings, I heard, of another Rovenloft this October. So that is a couple months away, but I hear things. I hear rumblings in the ground
There are
that the
rumors.
Dakersaurus will be back.
Look out. That is, if we get another Brovenloft, that is sure to be a great time. That was a lot of people's introduction to the Bro SR, and playing D&D the way that we do is something else. Hey, speaking of which, I've got some mildly developments in our weekly Trollopulus game. See, the bros love their total nonstop Bronsteins and their bombastic personalities and big player versus player slugfests. But there's a lot of groups also just quietly doing their thing, playing week in and week out. And it's not all get along gang, it's not all Care Bears, right? The famous paladin thief dynamic where there's a unscrupulous rogue always causing trouble for the party, and the do-gooder paladin has to, they're always fighting over it. Well, I think a couple months ago, we finally had the showdown with the paladin and the thief. And at the beginning of the game session, the paladin, played by yours truly, unceremoniously threw him and another thief right. I said, sorry, whatever we're doing tonight, you guys aren't welcome. Now, how do you think they responded to that?
I would imagine they're very unhappy.
You would, but that's why we play with the Broasar Elite. I'm sure Slippery Pete, the pious thief, played by the inimitable Flu the Druid, I'm sure he was disappointed, but he took it in stride. He says, no, this day was going to come sooner or later. Don't worry, I'll get you someday. And he faded into the background of the campaign. And he brought a character that he had been working on, and we all played the game and we had a good time. The man took it in stride. What can I say?
It is an interesting dynamic that is kind of.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Has his revenge materialized yet?
No. He's really focused on. So he's 9th or 10th level. He's focused on developing his own domain. There's a city somewhere in the world where he's establishing his own thieves guild. He's got his fingers in some pockets. A lot of his playing behind the scenes. He's got, he's always messaging the dungeon master. He's always doing this or that. Pete's going to be fine. And so he's going to bide his time. And I think he's content just to laugh when my paladin dies in a heroic fight with an ancient red dragon. I think he'd be happy with that. But if he gets an opportunity, he will knife me, and it will be glorious. We just don't intend on giving him that opportunity. And it's definitely not personal. Everybody's sort of doing it it's all in good fun. And my character's not always around to play, so it gives us, so what are we doing? We're doing organically what people have tried to do by forcing Braunstein, forcing player versus player, or we're trying to do it organically. And I do regret to inform you, it takes a long time, a lot of game hours to get there. But it's fascinating to see. We've got Pete the Thief is name level. We've got a Paladin and a Ranger are on the cusp of name level. That is 9th or 10th level, where we get to, enjoy the full benefit of our own domain. And it's all happening just naturally through play. We're going to have some people attempting to build domains. We are going to have people leveling up and getting there. But at the same time, we're sort of generating naturally through the characters playing their roles and their alignments and their own personal goals. We're coming into conflict. This isn't the marauding army of orcs or trolls, right? This isn't one of those things where we're not pitching armies against each other, at least not yet. But we're getting the kind of sort of intrigue and conflict and things amongst the players that most tables have to force, or they have to sort of have an agreement ahead of time. And it's been fun and interesting and satisfying. We owe it all to Jeffro. Hashtag thank you, Jeffro. We owe it all to attempting to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons by the rules, to see what sort of game emerges from playing that way, to sort of as a proof of concept, right? Do we really get the kind of game that we expect? In a lot of ways, yeah. Plus, it's a whole hell of a lot of fun. I can't. If we owe it to one-to-one time, once again, Jeff Rogaxian timekeeping. It works. It works as intended. It works as expected. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll have to put a link later. Gelatinous Rube on YouTube has a great primer video. One-to-one time. What is it? Why is it? What does it do? It's the best way. And 10 p.m. It's the best way I've played so far for the best kind of game I've ever played. Nothing does what RPGs do.
So,
and if you play with great friends and great players, it all works.
The player versus player element isn't appropriate for all kinds, for all games. And I think about this a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about the one-to-one time. I spend a lot of time thinking about domain level play and how it translates to other milieus other than the AD&D milieu. I especially compare it to like Birthright where it was, and I appreciate that Birthright baked it into the core of their rules, but I think they overcompensated because second edition did so much to take it out of the core of the game. Second edition AD&D, I think they overcompensated with Birthright. So although I like the notion of fighters becoming heads of nations and commanding countries and expanding their power base there, and thieves, rogues in second edition, becoming the head of mercantile empires, and clerics becoming the heads of churches and expanding their, becoming literal ecclesiastical leaders and expanding their power base that way. And then wizards, they drew ley lines connecting different provinces together and drew upon the magics that way. And then they had special battle spells they could cast, which AD&D did it intrinsically, just with the scale changes between indoors and outdoors. They cut out so much from AD&D that they had to kind of sneak back in the back door. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how these principles apply in other milieus. And if I could switch to Shadowrun real quick, even though Shadowrun doesn't have classes, you can easily see how a Ganger character, for instance, could start off as a low level, and I mean that not in the sense of classes, but in the sense of, the real world. You talk about someone being a low level Ganger, who then moves up in the ranks and becomes the head of their gang, and even the head of an association, because you have, in the city of LA, you have different chapters of the Crips all over the city. You could move up and become one of the people who is in charge or coordinating all these different chapters of the Crips. Biker gangs, kind of the same thing. Or at least you could, fictionally set that up in the world of Shadowrun. So you look at these things as roughly analogous to AD&D domains, and you could see how, to jump over to Cyberpunk, the game, how a solo could start off as just a tough, and then get followers that were other solos, and then become the head of a mercenary company, and then their mercenary platoon, and then a mercenary company, and then so on and so forth, if they applied these same sorts of ideas. And a rocker might not get followers the same way a fighter would or a solo would, but they could get fans and get bigger and bigger fans and become a force for influencing people and influencing crowds and influencing the media and spreading a story. And so when contemplating these things, when thinking about how similar ideas were unfortunately dropped out of the mainstream of role-playing after AD&D became second edition, I don't think at all that these ideas were tried and then discarded, because you don't see these ideas in other games. I think these ideas were lost. I think these ideas were not properly transmitted from the Gen Con or Wisconsin crowd to people playing AD&D, and so that other people who created follow-on games just never understood them because they were never taught them. They were never properly transmitted. And so I think a whole big part of the hobby was just overlooked, and the opportunities for it were kind of missed. I don't think anybody has taken a step back from AD&D and said, how do we apply these principles in a cyberpunk setting? How do we take the notion of fighter followers, of ranger followers, of cleric followers, and apply them to similar but different concepts, character concepts in cyberpunk? Similar but different character concepts in a Victoriana setting. Similar because in a Victoriana setting, you have adventurers going out into this vast world. You have gentlemen adventurers. You have, perhaps if you're going for a steampunk setting, crazy inventors who get apprentices. In all of these things, you can have henchmen in those settings, just like you have in AD&D. You can have hirelings in those settings, just like you have in AD&D. All of these concepts can be portable from setting to setting, and you don't see that. You also don't see morale brought out very often in second edition AD&D or D&D, Redbox or Holmes. You also don't see there's just a whole lot of core concepts, of simple, direct concepts from AD&D that were preserved, that are central to role playing, central to making combat that is coherent and sensible, making role playing that is coherent and sensible. Reaction rolls, for the love of Pete, don't make it out. These should be core to all role playing games. And they were just dropped, they were just lost. And a lot of the boredom in role playing games is because every single encounter turns into a fight, and every single fight is a fight to the death. And every single time player characters get captured, they get killed. Nobody does reaction rolls because they're never written in. And I don't say never as in literally ever, 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 never. They just don't get written in. This should not be the case. These simple concepts should be core to every game. Henchmen, hirelings, followers, reaction rolls, morale. Those aren't the only ones. One-to-one time, or at least some other downtime, constant, whether it's 2-to-1 days, 7-1 days, whatever. And or 1-to-2 days, which was in third edition D&D, was the official Forgotten Realms time was 1-to-2 days. Every year that passed in the real world, 6 months passed in the official campaign for the Forgotten Realms. And that comes directly out of the third edition Forgotten Realms source book. So I look at all these things and I contemplate how can they be passed on to, a Weird West setting? How can they be passed on to a science fiction setting? What would that look like with those things put into a core? And the final one is PvP. There are some games in which PvP should be largely, if not entirely, absent. A superhero game that's, and I'm not talking about something like Ray Winninger's Underground or something like the TV show of The Boys, where they're basically anti-heroes or supervillains who are constantly scheming against each other and trying to bring each other down. Or something like The Dark Knight Returns. Obviously, in The Dark Knight Returns, uh, Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, had his own agenda. Batman had his own agenda. Superman had his own agenda. And they weren't friends. They weren't working with each other. But if you have a group like the X-Men or the Avengers, generally speaking, unless you're having a face to heel turn, they're not going to be fighting each other. So whatever you have in the way of a, Bronstein going on top, players shouldn't be fighting with each other because they're part of the same team. So on that level, player versus player isn't appropriate. But on the level of, say, a Shadowrun campaign where people are, you have to be able to trust the people by your side during a Shadowrun, during a job. And all cyberpunk settings were Shadowrun before Shadowrun came around to codify those tropes. Because if you read Neuromancer is about a Shadowrun.
Right.
Shadowrun just codified the tropes in a very clear and almost perfect way. They perfectly identified what cyberpunk was, and all the people complaining about Shadowrun say, it's not real cyberpunk. I'm like, dude, you're getting upset at the fantasy elements. Just look at what Shadowrun is. It's perfectly cyberpunk.
Yes.
But you're going to have people with, or you could have people with different factions that they belong to. Just in the first Shadowrun novels, you had an Amerindian, American Indian gang that one person belonged to, a lady mage who couldn't commit to the group because she had all these mysteries and she was really off on her own, and a guy who was only shadowrunning because he was trying to track down information about his sister, and anything about his sister was more important than anything else. And another character who had lots and lots of affiliations with the elves in Tir Tanjire, and he had his own agendas. Everybody had their own agendas. Everybody had their own goals. And so it isn't necessarily that people were engaged in direct PvP all the time, but they all had their own agendas. They all had their own affiliations. And so for a Shadowrun campaign,
it's part of the narrative tropes.
Yeah, it's part of cyberpunk. So for a Shadowrun campaign, that whole Bronstein thing, that whole PvP thing is perfect. And if it had been added to Shadowrun, if those ideas, if those gaming concepts had been present and had been part of Shadowrun from the beginning, it would have been even more perfectly cyberpunk. if people had domains or followers that they were protecting in the city, and that their Shadowruns not only were jobs they did for Mr. Johnson's and they got New Yen for, but also helped advance their agendas for their faction that they belonged to, or for their advancement in that faction, or for their own personal goals. And they all had, what do they call it? They all had um, hidden agendas. They all had ulterior motives for everything they did. That would have been an even more awesome game. That would have been even more perfectly cyberpunk. And it just goes to show how critical these concepts were that were sort of laid, lost by the wayside as the as we moved into the 80s. There is real gameplay opportunities that were lost when the concept of the Bronstein aspect of AD&D fell by the wayside. And lots of games would have been just incredibly improved. I can take Deadlands. In original Deadlands, the good Deadlands, and I'm not talking about the mechanics, Deadlands where there was a Confederacy, you could have characters from the Confederacy, characters from the West, characters from Shan Fan, who were Chinese martial artists, characters from Deseret, or the I think it's a Doom City. I can't remember the name of the city, but the city where all the ghost rock mining is going on, and where Hellstrom Industries is based. And all of these characters could have different agendas. And if they got followers as they improved, and if they got domains as they increased in experience, and if they had ulterior motives for the things they did, and if some of them worked for the Ghost from the United States, or some of them worked for the Texas Rangers who had different agendas or whatever, that would be so massively improved as far as being a Bronstein goes, as far as having additional, PvP elements, or at least on a mission. Just an example, you have information that some players might want to get so they can pass it along, so that other monster hunters could become more informed, pass it along to the Epitaph, Tombstone Epitaph, the newspaper that publishes information about monsters so monster hunters can be better prepared, or the secret organizations who want to destroy the information so that it never gets out, so that the monsters don't get stronger, or the United States wants to get the information so it can have it, and the Confederacy wants to get the information so they can have it, or some of the railways, they want to get the information so that they can have it. So it gives them a competitive advantage in the Great Rail Wars. All of these things, all of these factions are at play, and your player characters can be working for any one of a number of them, or just for themselves. And the concepts of the Bronstein, the concepts of players working for different factions and getting their own quote unquote domains, their own little areas that they defend, whether it's a mercantile group, whether it's a actual physical domain, whether it's, what other kinds of organizations that would be appropriate for that character type. These are things that make the game more compelling. They are opportunities for goals for the players to strive. And I will again reiterate my definition of a role-playing game, or a game in general, which is players have goals, they have obstacles to meeting their goals, and they use their own ingenuity and the tools provided by the game mechanics to overcome those obstacles and succeed. The fun in the game comes from using their using their intelligence and their wits and their creativity to overcome obstacles that are not too tough, obstacles that are not too easy, and that feeling of excitement when they figure out a mechanic, when they figure out how to better use a mechanic, and getting to succeed at their goals. So the more interesting goals a game can provide, the more varied goals a game can provide, and the more challenge a game can provide, the better that game is. And here's the key to the Bronstein. It provides players a chance to fight against people who are more creative than any mechanic can be. Okay? That's why player versus player can work really well, because players who are creative can fight against other players who are creative, and that's more challenging than any mechanic can be.
That's right.
Now, the game master is also creative, and he can also provide challenges. The difficulty is he also has to be the referee, and that can sometimes cross over where being impartial and providing challenges, it is a balance you have to maintain. That's a little difficult. And players have to trust the game master that he is going to be fair. And I'm not saying that's hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. That's the balance that game masters have always had to. That's the, tightrope game masters have always had to walk. But anyways, so in some milieus, in some types of games, it's the PvP is not appropriate. But in other types of games, PvP, Bronstein's, domains, one-to-one time, and the other principles I mentioned could have, if they had survived, could have spiced up so many games. And I'm sure people could think of other examples. Rifts, easy example off the top of the head, that would have been enhanced to no end to have these kinds of opportunities, these kinds of additions. Everybody knows I'm working on, or I assume most people who listen to the show know that I'm working on my own project, and I absolutely spend a lot of time thinking about these issues, thinking about how to best incorporate them into my system, because I absolutely value making challenges for players and seeing where they fit and seeing how they fit, and deliberately and with malice aforethought focusing player opportunities on giving them the options to have followers and domains and goals to engage in these kinds of things, because I see how valuable they are for games. and they're not going to end up exactly the same as AD&D, but I definitely that's why I think about these things so much, is um, because I know the value in them, and I see the value in them, and
Yeah,
I want to move those opportunities beyond AD&D. And that's not because I think AD&D is bad or wrong or anything like that. It's just that I know that the people who created Deadlands, and the people who created Shadowrun, and the people who created all these other games are not going to do it themselves. And so I want to give other milieus the opportunity to have these sorts of mechanics and experiences in them, uh, and nobody else is going to do it. So
that's right.
it's going to be me.
And you and like-minded and designers who recognize that value that you explained. Bradford's
Yeah.
on our side. He says Rift's Palladium Fantasy Tord and many other product lines would be so much better with the Pro SR gameplay. Yeah, and of course we have to throw Cyberpunk in the mix. You were very successful in our Cyberpunk one-shot Bronstein. Um, that's a game I wish I had more time to commit to. Just like you explained earlier, Warpig, that awesome, awesome setting, great tropes, perfect kind of, simmering behind the scenes. Um, every man in it for themselves type of player versus player. Um, but anyway, great rant. Do you want to talk about movies?
Sure. I reviewed Bloodlines. In fact, I reviewed the whole Final Destination uh, series a few weeks ago. But you finally saw Bloodlines, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was a rant on that. For all the terrible faults of the Final Destination series, yeah, it served up exactly what you expect from it, which is a obscene, campy, gory death scenes. Um, they're not they're not horrifying and shocking just because they're so damn cartoonish.
Yeah.
And a few of them I busted a gut laughing at it, and my wife's like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong with you?" I'm like, "Nope, it's that funny." It
Well,
was like watching Wile E. Coyote in the chasing the Roadrunner.
honestly, in the original movie, some of the death scenes were really visceral and like shocking.
Yep.
But as the series went on, they just got
And they hit the formula, and part of the formula is foreshadowing, and it's just a series of Chekhov's guns where they
yeah,
start lingering for a moment on some mundane object or like a toy on a shelf, and so you get invested for the sequence. The audience gets really invested in, okay, how's that going to play into the hilarious Rube Goldberg machine of death, right? And so that's the fun of the film. It's not the shock of the gore or anywhere like that. It's like, okay, what kind of crazy sequence of events is going to lead to some grisly death, for this character, right? Um, that's the whole point of it. It doesn't offer anything after beyond that, and that's why it's as successful as it is.
um, and you saw another movie before we get to Happy Gilmore.
Oh yeah, your favorite action star Gerard Butler just made a sequel to Den of Thieves. So Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. He's teaming Little Ice Cube, O'Shea, what's his name, Junior. Um, it's a heist movie where the cop from the first movie, Gerard Butler, joins the thieves, and he becomes a diamond thief for this movie.
I
And
didn't even see the first movie.
that's okay. I did, and I completely forgot everything that happened in it. Up and up until the two characters meet up, and the cop says, "Oh, spoiler alert! Oh, you stole money that was about to be removed from circulation. That's why they didn't know that they were robbed." And it was like, "Oh, that's right, that did happen. That was clever." um, totally forgettable. It's just a heist movie. Den of Thieves 2, um, also forgettable. There's some fun driving scenes. There's some fun action scenes. It's what you expect out of a heist movie. It's not particular, but you're already paying for your streaming service. Make a bag of popcorn and watch it. Whatever. I liked it.
Oh, good. You like the Gerard Butler movie?
He's my leading man. I want to see him in everything now.
I've seen some movies in the past week, but they're going to be lumped together with some other movies I'm watching for next week.
Cool.
Because I'm doing one of those things like I did with Trauma, where I'm watching all the movies from like one director. Not all the movies. I'm watching several movies from one director. So I'm going to review them all at the same time for next week. So I can't talk about any movies I've seen. Although I hear Weapon is good, or The Weapon. A lot of
Yeah,
people are saying it.
I've heard mixed reviews. Yeah, the people who liked it are shook. It's supposed to be really haunting.
So I'm thinking maybe I might watch that for next week just to give a review of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you commit to that, or are you interested in that?
Actually, I've got a great thing coming up next week. I may have time, I may not, because this Friday, Weird Al is in town. I'm gonna go see Weird Al on Friday.
Don't. I'm so jealous.
I know. Isn't that cool?
I've been to one Weird Al concert and it was great. It was amazing.
He's a fantastic performer. I'm looking forward to it. I may have time this weekend to see it. I may not. We'll see.
I could forgive you for a Weird Al concert. I wouldn't even care.
Right?
No, I would not even complain. Seriously. For a Weird Al concert, I'd be like,
Would you forgive me if I missed the Geek Gab for a Weird Al concert? Like, sorry, Monday night was the only time I could go.
Oh yeah, if it was Monday night and that was the only time you could go, I'd be like, sure. It's Weird Al. I mean,
I don't know if Chad would forgive me.
yeah, if that was the only
So
time
main
you could
event,
go was Weird Al, yeah.
yeah. Main event DW. It is fresh in your mind. We both sat down and watched Happy Gilmore 2 on Netflix.
Yes. I literally got done watching Happy Gilmore 2 like 19 minutes before the show started. I finished it.
One great thing about streaming, you don't have to schedule a trip to spend $50 at the Cineplex.
Uh,
Yeah, thanks,
Happy
Simon.
Gilmore 2 is filled with cameos. Just like wall to wall cameos.
Yeah, Adam Sandler does this thing. It's not just Happy Gilmore. He does this thing years where like he needs a little more cash or he needs a vacation and or some of his buddies are running low on cash. And so he puts out a new movie and he just sort of invites all his old like SNL cast members and movie buddies and everything. He just invites everybody to show up. And we're not even getting to the golf cameos, of which
Oh yeah.
there are like 15 um, professional golfers in this film. But like he does this every once in a while. It's a brilliant move. He's just like, yeah, it's like throwing a party. Like, I'm going to throw a party that costs $150 million to make, and you're all invited.
Uh, Eminem shows up in it, which I thought was just the weirdest random cameo ever.
That was my least favorite cameo. It wasn't the least funny cameo, but it was my least
Um,
favorite.
and he actually has three people show up who are, I guess technically cameos, but they were actually acting. And so I wondered if they had ended up in the wrong movie, like if they didn't understand the assignment because they were actually trying to act their characters. And I'm like, you guys know what movie you're in, right? I'm,
Who are you thinking
I'm
of?
talking Margaret Qualley and the other two guys who were with her. Um, the three golfers who, when Happy Gilmore first went back to the golf course.
Yeah, Eric Andre, and that was really strange. That was a strange cameo for sure.
Because they were just there trying to be people. They were trying to be their characters. They weren't trying to like mug for the camera or overact or anything. They were
Well, I
just
mean, Eric, they're like, this is the sketch. We're going to do the sketch, and they committed to it.
yeah. And I was just like, and you compare them to like Kevin Nealon's role, um, or uh, just about anybody else who are basically there to mug for the camera, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of what cameos do in Adam Sandler movies nowadays. Um, but like Margaret Qualley was just there and just did her job. She showed up. She was professional. She played a role to the T, and that was it. And I'm like, it was just another job for her. Like she was on this set of, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
She
She had a
like she was
role.
doing a
She did
TV
her.
show, a TV episode.
Yeah, I was like, I
Which is funny
just
because apparently she doesn't do TV.
the whole. Everybody else is so over the top, and they were just kind of. I mean, except for Eric Andre, they were just kind of doing it.
Yeah.
It just compared to everybody else, they were so low key.
So what'd you think? We had just it was a stream of cameos. Some of them were really really funny. Some of them weren't. What else? Like what else do you have to say about it?
I thought the guy playing Shooter McCavin nailed his role.
Brilliant. Actually, best part of the film.
I mean,
What's his name? Christopher McDonald, I think.
it's like he just stepped out of the first movie. Um, he just came in and played that
Yeah,
character perfectly. Uh,
yeah. Only you've gone absolutely insane from being in prison 30 years. Done.
yeah, I
Absolutely stole the show every scene he was in.
um, I mean, all of Sandler's kids were there playing his kids,
Yep.
and they did an all right job for what they were asked to do. They weren't great, but they weren't.
I thought, yeah, they had to do the job. I thought the movie was really, really good. It was retarded. It was so stupid. in exactly the way you would expect. And actually, in the first act, they were sending like a joke a minute at you, and almost all of them hit. Almost all of them landed. Um, everything that you remember from like Adam Sandler's shtick from the Happy Gilmore character, like, yeah, his kids are all, adults or on the verge of adulthood, and he's got a bunch of boys that are just like rude and they're always fighting with each other and everybody else and that sort of thing, right? Um, that Happy Gilmore's down on his luck, because of who he is and the way he is and how he acts and everything like that. Um, so here's the thing, DW. I know you know this, but I'm going to ask anyway, for the edification of our audience. What's important when you're writing a comedy? What would you say is one of the most important things about the actual plot or the story? What makes a good comedy? Or what makes a good plot in a comedy movie?
I don't know.
I know you've heard it. If you took away all of the jokes, it would still be a coherent story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a good comedy needs comedy share that the jokes come out of the situations or the characters or the jokes and the plot and the situations may be in themselves funny, humorous, but if it doesn't make sense or if it's a nonsense plot, then nothing lands.
Yeah, you should be able to take the plot of a comedy and you could make a drama about it if you turned it around and made everything serious. Um,
And if you're yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And if you're going to make a story, and this is why I really enjoyed the film and why I really appreciated it, as retarded as it was. If you're making a movie about a character from like a sports movie who won 30 years ago, like where's the most obvious place to start with? Okay, let's catch up with him 30 years later. Where do you start?
I don't know what you're going
He's
for.
he's
Sorry.
down, he's out of it, he's got yeah, like you know, that's a starting point. Like, oh, we want to see Happy Gilmore do Happy Gilmore stuff again. Well, he's got to get back to golfing, right?
Yeah,
So like let's bring him down, let's humble him because at the end of Happy Gilmore, like he's at the top. He just won, right? We got to humble him, we got to bring him down so we can build him back up and watch him succeed again. It's natural. That's where you start. And they did all that. His wife in the movie, played by the late Julie Bowen, you know, she's gone, and it's his fault, and literally, um, and he's spent all the money, he's lost his grandma's house, right? The kids are all they've got to move out and that sort of thing. You know, he's down on his luck, he's out of cash, and he needs to make a bunch of money fast, and he has since his wife died, right? It's a story set up. It makes perfect sense. It establishes the character and all the motivations. It's believable within the character. They play it straight, and they don't cheapen it. There are jokes everywhere, right? But they don't cheapen it, and the actors don't overdo it. They don't wink at the camera. They play those parts sincerely, and it sets up the conflict and the motivations for the rest of the movie. That's all they had to do. All they had to do was let's catch up with this character, see what he's doing, and why are we watching another movie about this guy, right? They did it. It's so weird. They did it beautifully, and
One
it makes the rest of the movie work. It makes everything that follows enjoyable.
one of the things I thought they did really well in the movie, um, you have a lot of shows on TV now that are like uh, gimmick sports shows. Um, there's one where they're trying to run across all these obstacles over water, or uh, and they're spinning and they will knock you into the water. You have to jump over them. You have to run up obstacles and stuff. And then there's like this ninja challenge where you have to climb up things, move over bars, whatever. And I mean, it is all really difficult stuff. It does take a lot of physicality, a lot of athleticism to do it. I'm not trying to um, heap scorn upon the heads of the competitors, but they are like gimmick, sports shows. And one of the aspects of the movie that happens later is that they have this entrepreneur who is making a gimmick golf show, a gimmick golf league, and they absolutely nail it, just 100%, because it doesn't directly copy any of those things. All the obstacles and stuff are over the top and funny, um, but it is perfectly in the spirit of all those shows. You could absolutely see people, if they sat down and said, okay, we're going to make a show, extreme golf, it could end up with something just like that. And I thought they nailed that absolutely perfectly. And I think that's like what you were saying about the plot. I think that was critical for the end of the show, is that be a credible thing, that it seemed kind of stupid, but not so stupid that it seemed like something somebody would never make, if you can see the difference.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's plausible and credible. And if you take away the over the top character and the cheesy jokes and the and the Guy Fieri cameo, which was hilarious, it's it's believable. That's totally believable. Yeah, you nailed it. So right. He dropped off the call. Yeah, I know it's weird to gush about Adam Sandler film, but you're right, Daddy Warpig. I was just saying, and I hope you can hear me better now. Um, and chat, if I'm breaking up, let me know. Um, I was just saying that, like, if you take away the jokes and the hilarious Guy Fieri cameo and everything like that, it's plausible. It's major league. Like we've seen people try with the NFL multiple times to make a competitor league. This one's more cooler, more dangerous. It's, XFL, that sort of thing.
I'm back.
You're absolutely right. That's why it worked. Can you hear a word I'm saying?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Fantastic.
I starting to have coughing again.
Understood. Hey, well, we can wrap it up anytime you want.
I enjoyed the second half of the movie more than the first. Once they got on to the golf course, once they got on to especially the extreme golf course, the jokes started to hit more for me.
Mhm.
The jokes in the first half of the movie didn't hit as much for me. And I'm not sure why. I obviously I haven't had time to sit and think about it and analyze it, but the second half of the movie was a lot more enjoyable for me. If you go to watch it, there's a um, there's a mid credits sequence, so stick around for that. Um,
Oh, cool.
and I
I
will
don't think
say
I saw that.
this: um, it is an enjoyable movie, but it's definitely not something that would be compelling enough to be a hit in the theaters. So if you're wondering if this is like a return to form to the old Adam Sandler, it isn't. Um, but it is an enjoyable movie. Um, and uh, I enjoyed the second half more than the first. So that would be my review. It's good, not great.
Yeah, it is good. I can't believe I'm saying that about a Adam Sandler movie made in this year, but it was good.
So,
Pop another bag of popcorn, watch it.
all right. I think I
All
need
right,
to go.
DW. Yeah, man. Let's call it.
Any last thoughts?
No, you already heard him. Go watch fun movies. We'll talk to you next week, DW.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to finish my mystery directors um, challenge for the movies I'm watching. I had a bunch of people finally jump up on me on Twitter and say, "What? You've never seen these movies? You have to see movies." And then somebody said, "Well, the '80s are just not the '80s without these movies." And I'm like, "Okay, I will finally watch this gentleman's movies, and I'm going to review them for next week." And they all said this one movie is absolutely the best one he's ever made. So start with that. So I started with that. So I am listening to uh, I'm listening to what people have said, and I want to talk about it. And it is definitely a completely different experience.
I'm looking forward to it.
um, all right, folks, this has been Geek Gab for Monday, August 11th, 2025. We want to thank everybody who tuned in live and participating in the chat. We want to thank everyone who will tune in later over the course of the next week. We are here every Monday night, just about 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Or you can catch us on youtube.com/geekgab. Once again, that's youtube.com/geekgab. Listen to us on the Google Play Store, the iTunes Store, or on soundcloud.com. Just do a search for Geek Gab. Subscribe to us on the device of your choice. Download us to your computer, or just listen to us on the web. We are signing out for today, folks. But don't you worry. Don't you fret. We will be back.